Like a bad penny, I am back. I'm past President Jane Covington, filling in for current President Drew Rogers, who ditched us to go on fall break with his family. We will start today's meeting with an invocation by Susie Lindsay, and then the pledge and four-way test will be led by Jack Massari.
Thank you. If you could bow with me, please. Heavenly Father, we ask your blessing over Rotarians here in our club, Rotarians around the world, and our Rotary leadership. We are so blessed to be able to meet and do good works in the world. In particular, please watch over Rotarians in our club who have needs. Be with Larry Kane and his family as Sue is nearing the end of her journey. Please pray peace for all of them. We pray peace for all those in the areas of conflict in the world, especially the innocent children who are being caught up in wars. We pray for peace and resolution around the country. And we pray widely that you will bless us, bless our works, and help us to do the goodwill that you would want us to do in the world. In your name we pray, amen.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now the four-way test, things we think, say, do. First, second, third, and fourth. We certainly hope so.
And now Laura Troop will introduce guests and visiting Rotarians for our club secretary, Jennifer Bourne, who also ditched us to go on fall break with her
I
family.
know. Everybody's slacking today. All right, our first guest, where's Jim? Jim got up. Jim, you got a guest. You got to introduce your guest today. We still want to make him feel welcome. Would you like?
Gary McCullough, good friend of mine. The real thing is his wife is out of town and he didn't have anything to eat today, so I
That's a good reason to be here. We have two other guests who are in process at this table. Banks Hickman here. Okay, stand up and wave and bow and curtsy and all the things. And Matt McCall, also in process with us. Yay, Matt. And Tim Elder, who is sharing my table today. Stand and wave. Wave,
Welcome,
wave,
Tim.
wave. Did I miss anyone today? Right. Welcome to all of our guests.
Awesome. Welcome, everybody. Couple of quick announcements. You just heard Susie in the prayer give you an update on Sue. Lots of folks have asked how she's doing. Larry never misses Rotary, as you know, so that should tell you Sue is not well and she's nearing the end of her journey. So please keep them in your thoughts and prayers. About 10 or so of us went to Waverly this last Saturday for the service project. And just so everyone knows, we served more than 300 families and the weather was perfect. It was a really fun day. We worked alongside Rotary clubs from around Williamson County and other volunteers. It was all around just a great day. Banks joined us, so he got to experience, a good day of Rotary service. So we appreciated him making the trek out there, and it was just a great day. Let's see, if you have not already signed up for the 50th anniversary banquet, you should have the email in your queue. And that is on October 26th. So please sign up when you can so that we can plan appropriately. Patrick has the ability today to take your credit card if you need to pay your dues, because the credit card function on our website is currently down. So he'll hang around for a bit after Rotary today. If you need to get your dues handled, then Patrick Wright is your guy. And last but not least, let's wish a happy birthday to John Kraft today. And now, while we're on a happy note, I'm going to ask Zach to lead us in Happy Bucks.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Jane. All right. Who's happy today?
All right. Well, I have good news and bad news. The good news is that the occupational therapist at Vanderbilt driver rehabilitation program cleared me to drive as of 2 days ago. That's pretty amazing after not less than 4 months following a near fatal brain hemorrhage. That is really good news. But the bad news is the state of Tennessee won't let me drive until 6 months later. So I'm still needing chauffeurs and still needing rides, and I thank everybody who's going to do it. So thank you very much.
Awesome, man. Yeah, thank you. That's awesome. That's awesome. Oh, town. You playing the fight song? No. Okay. All right. Okay.
But I did want to make a plug for the food handout that we do. Yes, we do once a quarter. You know, every morning that I get up at 4:45 to go do that, I say, oh man, I'm never going to do this. This is the last dadgum time I'm going to do this. And then I go and I just see the looks on all these people's faces who are pulling through there. You know, Waverly's still hard hit. We had over 200 cars, I think, there, and they're still coming through. And we ran out of food, I think, eventually. So it's a great thing to do if you want to enjoy yourself. And we carpool down there, and people get to ride with me and hear about Florida State, and how great we are. We're back, and how wonderful we are. What a great football program that they've been for, gosh, 40, 50 years now. So anyway, but yes, so I would recommend that you do that any chance you get. So thank you.
There's so much I could say there about that. Like, it was going so well, and then we're trying to get people to go to Waverly.
Who else is happy?
Our two kiddos that we're adopting moved in with us this week, so we're getting settled. A 14-year-old boy and a 10-year-old girl. So we are learning how to navigate having 5 kids now. So we would appreciate
2 of
prayers.
which are named Avery, right?
So yes, my biological daughter is Avery, and now our adopted or to be adopted son is also Avery. So any nickname ideas would be fabulous. And if anyone wants to contribute to our grocery bill, that would be amazing too.
All right, who else is happy? Well, I'll throw the last dollar in then. I'm really happy. So when I'm not at the office doing medicine, I do some real estate investing, and I bought a house in May, and I've been trying to sell it. It's up in Minnesota, and I finally put under contract this week, and gonna get a young guy in there, and so he's really kind of happy, excited to get kind of sold, and so I'm really relieved. So it's a blessing. So November 7th is the closing date. So see, hopefully, I hope they have. So that's good.
Awesome.
And with that, back to you, Madam President.
Thank you, Zach. Okay, now I'll ask Jack Masari to come up and introduce our speaker for the day.
During Brandon's 12 years at Middle Tennessee Electric, he's had the opportunity to serve in various departments, including engineering, key accounts, and strategy. Brandon enjoys studying data and creatively thinking about ways to be opportunistic with emerging technologies to benefit MTE's membership, of which I am one. Brandon has a BS in electrical engineering and a master's in engineering management, and is a licensed PE. Please help me welcome.
I really appreciate the opportunity to share with y'all today. Jack asked me for a bio, and I said I don't have a really exciting bio, so I'm sorry. This is pretty much it. So hang with me. But I do enjoy looking at data. I love it, and anytime I get a chance to share some of what I'm seeing, I enjoy that too, because when you're just spending all day, every day, staring at a computer screen, and you're, you want to show somebody what you've been working on, right? So I hope you all will enjoy this. I did want to start just by talking about our why. We recently, I guess 5 or 6 years ago, went through this strategy map, and we talked about what is it, our why. Some of y'all, I'm sure, have seen the Simon Sinek TED Talk. I think it's the most watched TED Talk on YouTube, where he says you start with your why, and everything that you do as an organization comes out of this. Well, I looked at the the website for Rotary Club of Brentwood, and I saw this among other values, this fulfilling opportunities to service, for service to others. And I thought about our why, MTE's why. And, you know, we frequently will tell people, we're not just poles and wires. I know that's probably what you see and you think about, but we try to be more than that. So our why is serving to make life better for our members. Everything we do, we hope it is to make your lives as members better. And that goes beyond just the energy, cost-effective energy, and then also now we're doing internet with United. So I love when I get a chance to talk to these organizations, because I do feel like at the heart of who we are is a servant-hearted organization. And I know everyone here believes in service. We've already gone around this morning and talked about the different ways that you all are serving your community. So I'm going to share with you a little bit about electric vehicles. And there's a lot of ways to talk about EVs. So I'm going to try to hit a couple things I think would be interesting for you. But you know, really at the root of electric vehicles for the electric company, it's this idea of our industry is disruptive. And so when you think about in the last decade, all the things that we as an electric company have sort of embraced, we've got smart meters. So we were, I guess, 6 or 7 years ago, we were still walking house to house every month and typing in the meter number. And, you know, and that seems archaic to me now, but that was 6, 7 years ago. And now it just does it, you know, and it's, the world has changed drastically in just that amount of time. Solar and batteries are obviously something that has changed a lot especially battery technology. The cost curve is coming down. Solar cost curve is still coming down, but it's slowed. Distribution automation. This is this idea that we have smart electronics throughout our grid. And so if a car hits a pole in the middle of the night and it takes 500 people out, all these switches can just open and close and isolate that and get 400 of those people on before a lineman ever gets in his truck. And so there's all sorts of ways these technologies are becoming available. Artificial intelligence is one that I don't know we've figured out what it's going to do yet. And electric vehicles. Electric vehicles are especially interesting to me because Middle Tennessee Electric has more EVs on our system than any other power company in the state of Tennessee, which blew my mind when I found that out. So I've actually been able to go out and find, as of March, I believe we had 12,000 EVs on our system. And that's a pretty conservative number. That's 12,000 EVs registered to private individuals within 3 years. So anyone that bought them before that, I don't have those records. And we are, I talked to Jack a while ago. If you know our CEO, Chris Jones, he loves this idea of being opportunistic. And he is servant-hearted at his core. And so what he tells us to do a lot of times is not to consider these things as threats, but really more like threats to business as usual. We can't do business the way we always did it. So it's really we can be opportunistic about this if we look hard enough. So the future of electric vehicles, it's tricky because there's so many things that we don't know. Some people say it's the Wild West, and I think that's pretty true. We don't know what the range is eventually going to be. You can go get an EV right now, pretty standard. You get 250, 300 miles or more for a charge. But I've heard that there's going to be 500 miles. I've heard for years that there is a major manufacturer that has a 1,000-mile battery that they just haven't released yet. We don't know what public and residential charging is going to look like. We're getting a lot more public chargers here in Williamson County. You guys have more public chargers than Rutherford, Wilson County, where I live. But they're coming. I mean, I'm getting applications all the time. They're coming. And we don't know what that's going to do. Right now, it's about 85 to 90% of all charging occurs at the home. And so that's where we've been focusing. But we don't know once these become more available how that might change. We don't know about battery chemistry. And there's this idea of vehicle to home or vehicle to grid that is you can do it right now. If you have a Ford F1 Lightning, their chargers and their setup, if you spend the money to do it, and it's not cheap, I've got quotes, it's about a $20,000 setup after you buy the car if you want to do it. But you could power your home from your F-150 Lightning. And I'm sure y'all have seen the commercials on the Super Bowl and that sort of thing. So what is that going to do, for us? So what do you do when everything's uncertain and you've got a plan for the future? We're kind of rallying around this idea that one thing is certain, and that is in sort of technical jargon, high system load factor is going to be beneficial to us. And all that basically means is we don't want this like one peak where there's a really high demand and now we've got to build all this infrastructure to serve that 1 hour, that one day. We need it to be a smoother, flatter peak. And so if we can help that, then that's what we'll try to do. I'll talk more about that in a second, but I did want to share with you some of I mentioned all this charging occurs at the home, right? And so we've decided we need to think about how that influences our peaks and our system load factor. And so we decided first thing we're going to do is just look at how do people charge right now with no incentives at all. And then we're going to try to move that charging overnight. So what I was able to do, I told you I had about 12,000 EVs that I knew were on our system. And I have this amazing GIS group that are on the MTE team. And I said, I know these 12,000 homes have EVs. I need to know what their curves look like. And what we found was that most of them are already sort of charging overnight. Most of them come home from work, they plug in, and about 5 o'clock, you'll see the load kind of come up and then it sort of tapers off. A lot of people will think, well, 300 miles, I get 30 miles an hour, that's going to be 10 hours of charging. But what we're seeing is that most people are having less than 100 miles a day that they're traveling. So they're really only charging less than 3 hours. But what we don't want is to let all that charging load happen when we're setting our peak, because then it's going to cost us more on our power bill and it's going to make us have to go out and buy more infrastructure, right? So if your transformers at your home, the best thing I can do is diversify that so that you're not turning everything all on at once. And we've got to now build a bigger transformer, build bigger lines, all that stuff. So we need to offset that. And we did a study to show that if we can move all that overnight, there's 6 hours where we do not see we never see a demand during those 6 hours. And they're the least amount of energy consumed by our members during those 6 hours. So we did this rate. We recently launched this in April. We're calling the NightFlex rate. And it's an optional rate. If you have an EV, you don't have to go on it. And if you don't have an EV and you want to go on it, we'll sign you up for that too. But what we're doing is breaking things down into, I don't love the term on peak and off peak, but everybody knows those terms. Everybody's heard of time of use. We have a lot of folks who are moving to this area from utilities like in the California area or New York area that had a time of use rate. So it's sort of their language that they're familiar with. So a traditional time of use rate has an on-peak rate that shifts during the months because you tend to set a peak in the afternoon during the summer when everybody turns their air conditioner on, and you set it in the morning in the winter when everybody gets up and turns their heat on. So what we decided, let's make it simple. Let's just say if you do anything in your home from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., we're going to take 3 cents off the power of the energy cost, but we're going to add 1 hour to the rest of the time. And what we've shown right now, and this is going to be able to apply every day. So you don't have to worry about summer, it's this, winter, it's this, whatever. And I've been now doing this for, we've had four bills that have gone through since that has been in place. And you can see here on this slide, the month we launched it, 5.9 cents is what you could get energy for during those 6 hours. So, we've been doing it for 4 months. We have 83 people on it. We're very slow. We're very slow to broadcast, right? Because we're the first one in the Valley that's ever done anything like this. And so we're like, we think we've done our due diligence, but let's get some data before we, really pull the trigger on launching it to everybody. But what I'm showing is that I'm seeing some people save over 18% on their bill. There has been an accumulated savings so far of over $1,600 in 4 months. So it's not significant, but a lot of these cars, you can just get your app out and say, start charging at 10 o'clock, and it just does it. And as long as you don't need more than 6 hours, you're in good shape. But the bigger thing is what we've noticed is if you look at the cost of the aggregated data, the load profiles, you'll sort of see this curve just like normal. And then at 10 o'clock, it goes up a little bit. And so it's like, oh, that's great. That's exactly what we want to see. That is helping us not have to go out and build more infrastructure because we can accommodate that more easily in the overnight. So the future, there's this idea of managed charging. The next step is if we see, oh, at 10 o'clock, everything is that now that's our new system load, well, maybe we can do some incentives to where we can smooth that out a little bit. You can talk to a lot of these chargers. All these devices are very smart. And so we're looking at some stuff like that. I've had some people say, well, I don't like that because you're taking away, you're in control of when I charge. And it's like, well, that's why it's very important for us to build trust, but also it's all optional. Anything we ever do will be optional, and it'll be an incentive to, make it worth somebody's while to do it. But the other part of it is I've actually had folks that have reached out to me and said, I want you to do managed charging. So it's interesting. Everybody, what I've noticed is I'm a certain way and I'm not everybody, right? So everybody has different preferences. And this idea of vehicle to home, I did want to share, I'm just going to go through this next slide because I want to talk about vehicle to home here. A couple of things that have happened in the last couple of years, just in the industry. There's all these new models. Tax credits are now available on cars that we didn't think would apply. Next year, they're going to be called point of sale reduction. So instead of paying for the car and then filing your taxes and getting it back, you'll actually get a point of sale reduction when you go to the dealer. In Tennessee, we've had a lot of investment in electric vehicles besides Nissan and Ford building their plant in Southwest Tennessee. Obviously, Volkswagen and Cadillac Lyriq is made right down the road from here. LG built a cathode plant in Clarksville. It's still under construction. And then Tritium, this is in Lebanon, and we actually bought 4 of these chargers. We're going to put them in. They should be commissioned within a month, but they're built right in Lebanon. If you're familiar with the Lebanon area, there used to be a Toshiba plant there, and they're actually built right there in that plant, and they're shipped all over the US and Europe right from there. And then one thing that's happened with myself is I used to do a lot of these talks. I've gone to California and done it and stuff, and it never fails. Someone will come up to me and go, so what kind of car do you have? And I'd say, I have a Honda Accord. And so you could just tell everything that I said just went, out the window. So I bought an EV, and I've never bought a new car before. I'll never buy a new car again, but I love it. I've already put 15,000 miles on it. I've had it for 7 months. And of course, I had a rock thrown off of a truck and it cracked the glass ceiling. And I'm too cheap to replace it. So I'm still driving it like that, but I do love it. I'm happy to share experiences. This idea that Christmas Eve curtailment, I wanted to touch on this for a second because a lot of times people will say, are we going to have more of these because of EVs? And I don't want to shut down any points of view because everyone has a good idea and perspective, but I want to share a little bit of behind the curtain. The thing that happened on Christmas Eve was largely driven by electric heat pumps. When it's 0 degrees outside, there's no ambient heat in the air to pull, so everyone runs that strip heat until it gets charged up, right? What I'm seeing is that when we had got the call from TVA that we need to reduce power, that was at a time then all of my curves are showing that people's cars are already fully charged. So they're not really pulling on the system at that time. Where I see some overlap on charging and demand is in the summer when the air conditioning is running. And that's why we're trying to move it overnight. But I talked about that vehicle to home. Imagine this is kind of like a generator. And imagine if we had this idea where TVA says, hey, we're having a capacity issue. And instead of having to do these rolling blackouts, we could call folks up that say, if your car is plugged up to your home, we'll pay you to run your house from your home and from your car. And if they can do that, that's a load reduction that we get to see, and we can actually flatten that curve, increase our system load factor, and meet TVA's capacity requirements even better. So there's ways to leverage this that we haven't exactly seen yet. Last little thing I was going to share, we started an EV car club for anyone who's excited about EVs. We started it just over 2 years ago. We already have 508 members in the club. We've got a podcast if you're interested. There's I'm building a little 1961 Austin Healey Bug-Eye Sprite, and my father-in-law and I, we ripped the engine out of it. We put batteries in it, electric motor and all that stuff. So we're this close to driving it. So it's been awesome. Don't do this in the middle of COVID. That was a terrible mistake because everything we planned it out and then everything went up in price. And then we had to order batteries from China during COVID. So that took like 3 or 4 months to get in. So, but if you're interested, I'd love to talk to you more about the EV Car Club. It's just a cool place for us to get together and talk about EVs. And what we found is that people that have EVs tend to be as excited about them as people that have classic cars, and they're eager to share their stories with others. And people have questions, so it's a good opportunity for them to share that platform. So I kind of breezed through a lot there, and I tried to talk a little bit about the grid and a little bit about EVs in general, but what questions do you all have?
Earlier this week, there was an article in the Wall Street Journal about a solar storm that could wreak all kinds of havoc with distribution system as well as a transmission system. Are you folks aware of that, and what measures you're taking to mitigate the consequences of that?
I've heard of like solar flares. Is that what you're, and the EMF? Yes. Right. Yeah, I have heard about it. I'm not in the engineering group, so I don't know what protection devices we have, but I do know that our group is aware of it. And I've also known there's things you can put on there, because what happens is the EMF, I've heard different stories, but the EMF can be so great that they'll shatter the electronics. So there's devices you can put. I think what's really important is to connect the ground and make sure that the grid doesn't lose that grounding portion. And again, I'm not equipped enough to know all the phasing and the angles and all that sort of thing, but I know that there's ways to mitigate that I know TVA and our group are aware of. Yes, sir.
Is there any extension? Our reliance on China has increased as a result of the introduction and money that we're putting into EVs. China. And the end game, solar panels, they are primarily manufactured in Japan or China, sorry, and China doesn't.
Mhm. That's a good question. And I don't know that I have a thorough answer, but I'll share one thing that they're trying to help with that is, so I mentioned there's a federal tax credit if you buy an electric vehicle. The way you qualify for that has changed over the last couple of years. Now, it's largely based on how much of the parts are sourced domestically or from free trade countries. And so every year, right now, this year, the base is like, I think 50%. Next year goes 60%. The year after that, 70%. And so the reason you're seeing a lot of investment here, even in Tennessee, is because they're trying to accommodate that and get those tax dollars. That's why LG is building their cathode plant in Clarksville. Those cathodes will go to the Cadillac Lyriq, is my understanding. And all of this logistical chain of supply will be domestic in order to get that full tax credit in the future. So I think there's ways they're trying to. Now, I think the question is, are we doing it right now? I don't know that I feel confident saying that we are, but are there plans in place so that 5 years from now we can look back and say we have moved that domestically? I think there are things they're doing to help with that. Yes, sir.
In the spirit of full disclosure, I actually work as a network planner for a large telecom. So that's part of where I'm coming from.
Sure.
And I think it's fascinating that companies like yours are diversifying what they do, and like what your division of United Telecom is doing with fiber to the home build outs. I'm kind of curious if you can discuss this in terms of your overall strategy, like how much more bullish do you expect the company or even other power companies perhaps that have a telecom division that are doing fiber builds? How much more of that business do you think that you'll possibly be getting into in the future?
Yeah, I'm probably the wrong person to answer that. I will tell you, just my limited exposure to the United part of operations is that I have been fortunate enough to be in some meetings where we've had to tell United, we're doing this project and we have to look at it differently than you all have looked at projects before, because a telecom is going to look at a project and say, oh, we got to hit a certain payback so that we can go out and build more and build more. And that's going to limit you to competitive areas. But our goal is every single member has high-speed internet. And whether that's with United or somebody else, that's really secondary to just this call to service and feeling like we have a duty, even if it's an area that maybe wouldn't make cost justification sense in the traditional telecom. That's where we can kind of bring our culture to help with that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, can you explain Middle Tennessee Electric's footprint and also in the larger picture, TVA? I don't think people understand how great that is, the geographic area.
Yeah, I just skip over that sometimes. My apologies. Middle Tennessee Electric serves Williamson County, Wilson County, Rutherford, and Cannon County. As I mentioned at our table, there's some bleed over here in Brentwood. This is actually NES, this building is, but for the majority of, just right down the road, I think is where the boundary is. We have 330,000 meters. We're the second largest co-op in the US, and we're the third largest utility in TVA. It's Memphis Light, Gas and Water, Nashville Electric, and then MTE. Yes, sir.
All my rich friends have Teslas like Bob and Jack. And I think it's probably a great idea. My concern is I drive to Florida a lot. My concern is you get 350 miles out and your battery's going down. Like the energy secretary was trying to prove she could drive to Florida, and it didn't work out for her very well. So at what point in time can you feel comfortable that you're not going to be driving, have to pull into some charging station? There's 4 other people in front of you, and it takes 20 to 30 minutes for each one.
Mm-hmm.
So your trip takes twice as long as you thought it was.
Yeah, it's a valid question. Yeah, I mentioned I'm an EV owner, but we have taken a couple trips. We've gone to Missouri, we've gone to East Tennessee, but we're thinking about a Florida trip actually, but it takes a lot of planning. I will say right now, if you have a daily route, like I have a daily route, Lebanon to Murfreesboro every day, it works perfectly. I'm a data guy, so I track every time I charge and how much my range is and how much I would have paid for gas. And I've literally saved over $2,000 this year in gas going 15,000 miles. Now, I also haven't had to get oil changes and stuff, but that's the daily driver perspective. And I think that right now, if you have that, I think it's a good time to have a daily driver EV and then what they call an ICE, internal combustion engine, for those other trips. But people have done it. I've talked to people that have done it, but it just takes some plan. Yeah, so I'll tell you this. I think that there's a quote I always like to share that people tend to overestimate with technology. They overestimate what can happen in a year, but they underestimate what can happen in 10. And I believe in 10 years, the world could be completely different. And this is going to sound kind of, I don't know, crazy, but there could be autonomous vehicles within 10 years. And we don't, it may make sense for me not to own a vehicle. I just have an app and say, today I need a truck because I'm going to Lowe's. Today I need a van because I'm taking a trip to Florida, and it's going to take me to a shuttle, and I'll get out, go to the bathroom. When I come back, they've already got another van ready to take me the next leg of the trip. So I think in some ways it's hard to answer. I do know that all of the major manufacturers are adopting the NACS protocol, which is the Tesla plug. And with them doing that, that's going to radically build out these Tesla superchargers throughout the country. And then I think within 3 years, you're going to be able to get in and charge 15 minutes and be able to go on your way. A lot of these are at places where you can get out, grab a sandwich, grab a coffee, go to the bathroom, and before you know it, that 15 minutes is up. So I think within 3 years, the world will be different. Yes, sir.
This is not an EV question, but a power grid question. I was in a meeting about 7 or 8 years ago, dealing with cyber security issues by an FBI agent whose job was in that area. He answered a question about where we were most vulnerable as a country, and he said the electric power grids are one of the most vulnerable areas right now for a catastrophe or disaster due to the interconnectedness, and he thought they had not advanced enough to be prepared. Do you have any comment about that situation?
Yeah, so I will share that I've sat on a few conferences and heard a lot of that, and the biggest asset from the power grid that can be ruined by cybersecurity is the generation assets, especially nuclear power. And so if you remember back in 2010, 2011, I think there was a cyber attack to I don't remember what country it was now, but it turned off a nuclear reactor and it caused all sorts of chaos. And at the time I was a PLC programmer, they had hacked into a Siemens PLC, which nobody had ever hacked into a PLC before. And so there was all this new cybersecurity going around that. TVA does all the generating. We don't have any generators. So our operations is fairly simple. I mean, we all have manual backups on all of our switches, but I know TVA has a very proficient cybersecurity team. They're under FERC, they're under NERC, and so they are on the forefront and edge of all cybersecurity awareness. So I feel pretty confident. I've heard those concerns as well. I know that they have a full team looking every day and making sure that their assets are robust.
So two things. I wanted to first address what Norris was talking about. You mentioned this earlier, the 500-hour or the 500-mile battery. That's the solid state battery, I think. And I thought one of the Toyota products has come out with one EV with a solid state battery, which takes a 300-mile car and turns it into a 600-mile car. And also you can charge it in about 15 minutes instead of 30 or 45. First of all, do you know where that is? And then the second question is, what do you know has TVA done? You mentioned the TVA brownouts that we all had Christmas Eve. Have they done any more build outs or studies to hopefully it's going to get cold again, to maybe mitigate that next time?
Yeah. So the first question, I don't have a good update on that battery technology, where it's at. I do think we're going to see Honda has recently shown their Accord EV. I think you're going to, right now, the Japanese auto manufacturers outside of Nissan haven't really been pushing the envelope, but I think that's going to change. And I think that's going to be where those battery technologies really emerge. Regarding TVA, I don't have a good update to share of anything concrete that they've done, all other than, and I know this sounds maybe empty, but they're having conversations that they've never had before about we don't want this to happen again. And so one great thing about us is that we've signed this long-term partnership agreement with them. So we basically are partners with them and they see us that way. And I feel like they're inviting us more to the table than they've ever been. And it's not just us, it's other utilities where we can sort of brainstorm with them things that we can do, that other utilities can do to help with that. So I don't have great concrete evidence other than it's encouraging what I'm seeing from them. Yes, sir.
I can address that question that Norris had. I've had my Tesla for 108,000 miles. I've been to South Carolina, I don't know, 3 dozen times. It takes me 2 charges to get there, 600 something. And each charge is about 30 minutes. So it's not so bad. I have to get out and go to the bathroom anyway. Yeah, there's never I've never had to wait. One. No.
Yeah, and I will say that I think we look at the load factors on the DC fast chargers and they're very low, meaning there's a lot of capacity there. And I agree, the adoption of EVs is radically accelerating. But I will tell you too, the amount of public chargers that are going to be in the market as well are going to accelerate even more. I'll tell you this too, and I know we got to go. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm here. If I don't get a chance to answer your question, I'm going to hang around. But I do want to share this. I think you'll find it interesting. I had a chance to speak to someone at Tesla, and I just made an observation. I said, I think Tesla puts these superchargers in not because they think that they're going to make money on them, but because they think that's what the trick to selling more cars. And she said, that's exactly it. we don't feel like we're going to make money, but we know that when somebody goes to buy one, that they're going to say, I need to know where I can go to charge. But the thought is, her thought was, it's 85% of all home charging, or of all charging is in the home, and it will stay that way because people are going to get in the habit of just saying, I'm home, I'm going to plug in. It's only when you need to do those trips. And so, not everyone in that area is going to be doing that. And I think you're going to find that there's going to be some availability. I just think out in California and those areas where there's been a huge adoption and the charger infrastructure hasn't met it yet, that's a totally different animal than what we'll see here. I think in a year, you can bring me back and throw tomatoes at me if I'm way off. So.
So actually, I just came back from a trip to Southern California, and I had a Tesla that I rented, and the infrastructure there was actually better than I had heard. I never waited one time. I think we were there for 4 to 5 days. Never waited once for a charger. Every time I went to a public charger, there were multiple stalls that were there for use. And when gas is $6 plus a gallon in Southern California, I saved easily $100 in just a short trip, probably more than that. So lots more electric vehicles out there than there are here per capita, but the infrastructure is catching up to that, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Just a shameless plug for your app,
Mhm.
My MTE. If you are a customer, I find that app to be extremely helpful. You can actually go in and look at your usage by day. It tracks all of your historical data. I can go upstairs and scream at the kids when I see the things spike up and tell them, either put clothes on or take clothes off. It's too hot or too cold. But it's very helpful. To your point about the meter guys walking around reading meters less than a decade ago, and you can get all this stuff. We had some people stay in our house sit our dogs, and I knew exactly when they turned the air down when we were gone. So got my ire up when I was trying to get some vacation time. But it is a very helpful app. So
I appreciate you saying that. If you are on the NightFlex rate and you go in there and look at your usage, it will actually break down your on-peak and off-peak usage as well. I started looking at everyone that's on the NightFlex rate, and I looked at the amount of the daily energy in that 4-hour block. And 2 years ago, it was like down at 20%. 20% of the group was using, the group was using 20% of their energy in that 6 hours. Now it's like 35%. Which is incredible to see. Like, it's the thing that's interesting is we didn't know if people would actually change their behavior, but they are obviously doing it. And it's some of it is because you want to save money, and some of it's because it's just, I don't know, it's kind of fun. I mean, I love looking at the data, and I know I'm a little nerdy, but I think everybody kind of enjoys seeing if they are able to accomplish something. Well, I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you again for inviting me, and thank you.
Brandon, thank you so much. That was really interesting. We have a gift for you for speaking to us. This is a pin with our club's logo on it. So thank you very much for being here today. I do want to re-welcome our guests. Jerry, we do question the company you keep, but we're very happy to have you today. And then Banks, Tim, and Matt, so glad y'all are continuing to visit us until you become official members of our group. Let's see, anything else? Did I miss any announcements, Jared? Okay, so Bill McCarthy is in the hospital, but things are looking better. He's at Vanderbilt. Okay, good deal. Thank you. If there's nothing else, please remember to help put away the chairs. And if there's nothing else for the good of Rotary, we're adjourned.